Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to, well, basically completely rewrite how you understand your own heart.
Yeah, your heart, your daily movement, and really why that whole, calories in, calories out fitness model is just fundamentally broken.
Exactly. And we're pulling all of this from the work of movement specialist Terrence Hughes. Specifically, we're looking at his book, The Invisible Epidemic, and this clinical framework he developed called the Augmented Circulatory System.
Right. And it's a radical paradigm shift in how we view human physiology.
Wow.
We're moving away from looking at the heart as this lone, isolated engine.
Which is how we're all taught to see it, right?
Completely. But instead, Hughes analyzes it as just one piece of a highly integrated whole body plumbing system.
Okay, so let's unpack this for everyone listening. I want you to imagine you're the lead engineer for a massive 100-story skyscraper, and your one job is to design the plumbing.
A very stressful job.
Right. But instead of putting like booster pumps on every few floors to help push the water all the way up to the penthouse,
Yeah.
you just put one single, incredibly hard-working water pump right down in the basement.
And you just cross your finger.
Yeah, you turn it on, and you expect it to blast water up 100 flights against the crushing weight of gravity, day in and day out, forever.
I mean, the mechanical strain on that basement pump would be completely unsustainable. It would burn out, and you would be fired on your very first day as an engineer.
And yet, when we talk about the human body, that is exactly the model most of us are taught to believe in. We learn in basic biology that the heart is a pump.
Right, the solo pump.
It beats, what, roughly 100,000 times a day, pushing blood out into your arteries, and then somehow that blood just magically makes its way back up from your toes against gravity all the way back to your chest to start the loop over.
Yeah, that is the standard cardiovascular loop taught in schools and clinics everywhere. But the issue Hughes highlights here is that this model leaves out the entire architecture of how blood actually returns to the heart.
It just completely ignores the booster pumps.
Exactly. It ignores the booster pumps.
So if you are listening to this right now, maybe you're sitting at a desk or doing a standard gym workout on a treadmill or driving, I want you to think about your own daily physical routine.
Because the reality Hughes presents is that even if you eat a flawlessly healthy diet and you hit the gym every single day, you might be inadvertently starving your cells of nutrients.
Which sounds crazy, right? That happens. But to understand why that happens, we have to look at what Hughes calls the augmented circulatory system.
Right. So the heart is the central engine, sure, but it relies on 5 peripheral pumps scattered throughout your body.
5 of them.
Yeah, 5. And without these peripheral systems actively working, the heart simply cannot maintain adequate output on its own without accumulating massive, massive stress.
Okay, so let's figure out where these hidden booster pumps actually are. Let's start from the bottom, down at the feet, where gravity is obviously pulling the hardest. How does the blood even begin the journey back up?
Well, that begins with the peripheral muscle pump.
Yeah.
So every time a skeletal muscle contracts, particularly the really large muscles in your lower body, it physically compresses the veins running through it.
Squeezing them like a tube.
Exactly. Your veins have these tiny one-way valves inside them. So when the muscle bulges and squeezes the vein, the blood can't go down. It gets squished forcefully upward, back toward the heart.
I read in the source material that your calf muscle is so crucial for this that clinics often call it the second heart.
They do. It's literally the second heart.
Okay, so it's like squeezing toothpaste from the bottom. But the calf muscle only gets that blood up to the knee or, maybe the lower thigh. Once that blood gets past the hips, there aren't massive, dense muscles surrounding the major veins to keep squeezing it upward.
Right.
So how does it fight gravity through the entire torso?
That is where the respiratory pump takes over. And I mean, this mechanism is absolutely massive for human health.
How does it work?
Well, every time you take a deep inhale, your diaphragm, which is this large parachute-shaped muscle at the bottom of your ribs, it drops downward.
Okay.
And that movement expands your chest cavity and actively drops the pressure inside your thorax.
Wait, I always thought breathing was strictly about getting oxygen into the blood. Are you saying the actual mechanical act of my lungs expanding is acting like a vacuum cleaner for my veins?
That is the exact fluid dynamic at play, yeah. That drop in thoracic pressure creates a literal vacuum effect. It powerfully sucks venous blood from the lower half of your body, pulling it up through the inferior vena cava and dumping it into the right side of your heart.
That is wild.
I know. Breathing isn't just gas exchange. Your lungs and diaphragm are actively pumping blood continuously.
Okay, so the calf muscles are squeezing the tubes from the bottom. The diaphragm is vacuuming from the top. But what about all the fluid that is inside those main venous highways, like the fluid trapped in our tissues?
So that brings us to the fascial and postural pump. Your fascia is this continuous web of connective tissue that wraps every muscle, every bone, every organ.
It's like a full-body internal wetsuit.
Exactly like
Huh.
a wetsuit. And it exerts mechanical pressure on your microscopic blood vessels and your lymphatic system. But to mobilize the fluid trapped in those dense tissues, you cannot just move back and forth in one direction.
You have to twist it,
Yeah, you have to move in multiple directions, sideways, rotational, diagonal.
like wringing out a wet towel. If I just fold a wet towel in half, the water stays trapped. I have to physically twist it in opposing directions to force the fluid out.
That's a very accurate visual. If you just stay in one posture all day or you only move straight forward, that fascial fluid just stagnates.
Gross. Okay, so what's the fourth pump?
Alongside that, we have the arterial compliance system. Healthy arteries are not rigid lead pipes. They are highly elastic.
Right.
When the heart pumps, the immense pressure causes the arteries to stretch outward. And then between heartbeats, those arteries snap back to their original size.
Like stretching a thick rubber band and letting it go.
Exactly. In physics, it's actually known as the Windkessel effect. That elastic snapping back physically propels the blood forward through the system while the heart is resting between beats.
So the pipes themselves are actively helping to push the fluid.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we have the calves, the breathing vacuum, the twisting fascia, and the snapping arteries. What is the fifth and final piece of the system?
So the fifth element isn't a specific anatomical structure, but a behavioral baseline. Hughes calls it restorative cardiac output.
What does that mean in practice?
This is the gentle, low-intensity, sustained movement you naturally do throughout the day. Getting up, walking around, shifting your weight, light reaching. It keeps those other four mechanical pumps primed and active.
And this is where Hughes points to the epidemiological scale of our modern health crisis, right? Because we don't do that anymore. We sit.
We sit entirely too much. The sources cite a massive 2012 study in The Lancet that linked physical inactivity to 5.3 million premature deaths annually.
5.3 million. That's staggering.
It is. But the baseline for this understanding actually goes back way further to a famous 1953 study on London bus workers. It was led by a researcher named Jeremy Morris.
Oh, right. What happened with the bus drivers?
Well, Morris noticed a really stark contrast in health between the men working on those iconic double-decker buses. You had the drivers who sat completely still behind the wheel for their entire shift.
And then the conductors.
Right, the conductors who were constantly on their feet, walking down the aisles, climbing up and down the stairs to punch tickets. They were getting hundreds of these microbouts of movement a day.
And the results.
The study revealed that the sedentary drivers had drastically higher rates of coronary heart disease than the highly active conductors. And this was despite them sharing, similar diets and social backgrounds.
Okay, I need to push back on this a little bit because I think this highlights the modern dilemma perfectly for you listening.
Yeah.
Let's say I am hyper aware of my health. I hit the gym for a really intense hour. I am sweating, I am doing heavy squats, my heart rate is through the roof. But then I commute to an office and sit at my computer desk for 9 hours straight.
Right.
My peripheral pumps, my calf muscles, my multidirectional fascia, they are completely shut off for the vast majority of my waking life. Does that intense 1-hour gym session cancel out the 9 hours of sitting?
This raises a critical question about how we view fitness, and the clinical research is very clear here. Sedentary time is an independent risk factor for metabolic and cardiovascular disease.
Meaning the gym doesn't just erase it.
Exactly. Hitting the gym for an hour does not physiologically erase the damage of sitting completely still for 9 hours. The gap between your scheduled exercise sessions is where a massive circulatory deficit accumulates.
So we have this incredible built-in architecture of booster pumps, but our daily routines just aren't turning them on.
But surely the gym is helping a little bit, right? Moving is better than not moving.
Moving is absolutely better. But how we move in the gym is frequently mismatched with how our circulatory architecture is actually built to function.
How so? This brings us to a foundational concept Hughes calls the multiplier effect. The specific equation he uses to describe the augmented circulatory system is 1 + 1 = 5.
1 + 1 = 5. I am always a fan of renegade math. How does 1 + 1 = 5 in the human body?
Well, the underlying science of these individual pumps, the calves, the diaphragm, the arterial elasticity, It's all been documented in medical textbooks like Guyton and Hall since the 1950s.
None of the physiology is disputed then.
Not at all. The problem is that the clinical and fitness worlds only ever looked at them in isolation. But in a living, moving human being, the circulatory effect of engaging all 5 pumps simultaneously isn't just additive. It is wildly multiplicative.
So, meaning if you use them all at the exact same time, you get this exponential boost to your entire plumbing system.
Precisely.
But you're implying that our standard gym routines aren't actually doing that.
They rarely do. And that is primarily due to something called sagittal dominance.
Sagittal dominance.
Yeah. Think about the most common forms of cardiovascular exercise. Walking, cycling, running, swimming, or rowing. What do they all share mechanically?
Well, you are just moving straight forward.
Right. You are locked in the sagittal plane. We almost never intentionally move backwards, sideways, or diagonally during structured exercise.
Oh, I see.
And because of that, massive circulatory mechanisms like your lateral fascial lines are left completely dormant. Furthermore, standard exercise often severely lacks deliberate cross-lateral movement.
By cross-lateral, you mean like coordinating your opposite arm and opposite leg at the same time, like reaching your left arm across your body while stepping your right leg back.
Precisely. Crossing the midline of your body physically twists the torso, which wrings out that fascial sponge we talked about earlier.
Right.
But neurologically, it forces your left and right brain hemispheres to communicate rapidly. That integrates your central nervous system with your circulatory system.
Are we actually so disconnected from our own physical biology that just moving opposite limbs intentionally is considered an advanced technique now?
Unfortunately, yes.
It sounds like we are training our bodies to be ultra-fast race cars that only know how to drive in perfectly straight lines on a flat track. And the second you ask the car to navigate a corner, the wheels just fall off.
That analogy hits the nail on the head, but the situation is actually even worse than that. Because we aren't just driving in straight lines. We are driving with the emergency brake fully engaged.
Wait, what do you mean?
What's fascinating here is how the average person manages their breath when they work out. Think about someone lifting a heavy weight or sprinting or doing something highly strenuous. What is the first thing an untrained person does?
Oh, they hold their breath. They grunt. They brace their stomach. They lock everything down to create stability.
Yes. In clinical terms, that is called the Valsalva maneuver. And when you hold your breath under physical exertion, you are actively fighting the respiratory pump.
Oh, wow. Because deep breathing creates the thoracic vacuum that pulls blood back to the heart.
Exactly. When you lock your airway and brace your core, you create a massive spike in pressure inside your chest. That pressure spike acts like a physical roadblock. It blocks venous return and forces your heart to work incredibly hard just to push blood against the pressure you just artificially created.
That is wild to think about. We are literally suffocating our own circulatory system while trying to be healthy.
We really are.
And this lack of integration between breathing, multidirectional movement, and internal rhythm, as opposed to just chasing mindless tempo and speed, it seems to infect everything the fitness industry tells us to do.
It permeates almost every standard practice. Hughes actually calls this the replication problem.
The replication problem.
Right. The fitness industry has completely failed to integrate this whole system science, and you see it most glaringly in what we are told to do for recovery.
Let's examine recovery then. Because we are relentlessly told to warm up, cool down, take a light recovery run on our days off, are you saying those established protocols are broken too?
Well, break down a typical warm-up or recovery run. What are the actual mechanics?
You're mostly just jogging.
Right. You are just taking the exact same forward-facing planar movement you always do and doing it slower. You aren't fixing the lack of joint articulation.
You aren't introducing rotational movement to mobilize the stagnant fascia.
Nope. And you aren't systematically coordinating your breath with your movement. You are just replicating the exact same flawed, incomplete movement pattern at a lower heart rate.
I see the problem there. But what about core stability? For the last 20 years, engage your core has been the absolute golden rule of fitness. Planks, bracing your abs. Surely building a rigid core is good for these pumps, right?
We have to look closely at the structural anatomy here. The diaphragm is the roof of your core canister. It is your primary breathing muscle, and it also functions as a primary spine stabilizer.
Okay.
When you isometrically hold a plank and intensely brace your abdominals, you mechanically restrict how far your diaphragm can move downward.
Wait, so engage your core. This cue we hear yelled in every single workout class is physically restricting our primary venous return pump.
Yes. You are essentially forced by the mechanics to choose between rigid spinal compression and healthy circulatory function. You cannot fully brace your core into a solid block and breathe deeply at the same time.
That's incredibly counterproductive.
It is. The fitness industry took a momentary, reflexive, stabilizing action, like bracing if you trip over a curb, and turned it into a sustained, breath-holding exercise routine that actively undermines your circulation.
My mind is officially blown. Okay, I have to ask about stretching. Flexibility, touching your toes, holding a hamstring stretch for 30 seconds. Please tell me that is still biologically sound.
Hughes refers to standard static stretching as structured stasis.
Structured stasis. So holding a 30-second hamstring stretch isn't warming up the engine, it's basically pulling the car over to the side of the road and turning the engine off entirely.
That is exactly what happens on a circulatory level. When you hold a passive stretch for 30 to 60 seconds, you are not actively contracting the muscle, which means the peripheral muscle pump is completely turned off.
And people almost instinctively hold their breath during deep stretches, so the respiratory vacuum is offline too.
Exactly. There is zero cross-lateral integration. From a circulatory throughput standpoint, it is a complete dead zone. And the clinical data backs this up too. Research consistently shows that pre-exercise static stretching actually reduces your muscle strength and power output by up to 5.5%.
Wait, really? It makes you weaker.
It adds minutes of circulatory inactivity to your session and measurably reduces your power.
So the conventional models of working out, warming up, and stretching are essentially missing the entire point of how the body's plumbing actually functions.
Entirely.
But the implications get even deeper, don't they?
Yeah.
Because this structural failure to understand the body doesn't just ruin our time in the gym, it completely derails how we approach food, diet, and energy.
This is the crucial pivot in the material, and it introduces one of the most vital focus elements of Hughes's entire framework. Assimilation equals health first.
Assimilation equals health first. Let's break that down. What does that actually mean for someone trying to navigate the grocery store?
To fully grasp it, we have to deconstruct what is known clinically as the expenditure fallacy.
The expenditure fallacy.
Yes. The modern fitness and diet industries treat the human body like a mechanical engine. The ultimate goal is to burn fuel. Calories in, calories out. If you want to lose weight or get healthy, the accepted math is that you restrict your food intake and you maximize your energy output on a treadmill.
Work harder, eat less, burn the fat. That is the undisputed gospel of the fitness world.
But the underlying physiology proves it to be fundamentally wrong. The human body is not a dumb engine designed to burn fuel. It is an incredibly complex evolutionary efficiency organism.
Designed to conserve, right.
Designed over millions of years to conserve energy and optimize its resources for survival. When you highly restrict your calories and simultaneously punish yourself with high-intensity exercise, your body doesn't say, great, let's burn all our stored fat.
What does it say?
It says, we are starving, we are burning too much energy, and we are under attack.
It panics, it just goes into survival mode.
It enters a state of chronic systemic stress, cortisol levels skyrocket, and when your biology is in a high-stress, fight-or-flight state, the body instantly deprioritizes non-essential functions to keep you alive.
Like what?
Well, one of the very first things it deprioritizes is gut perfusion, meaning it actively reduces the blood flow to your digestive tract.
Oh, wow. So we have been treating the body like a furnace, just shoveling coal into it, trying to burn it as fast as possible to get lean. But it's actually an intricate supply chain.
And this brings us directly to the concept of assimilation. Circulation is the delivery mechanism. Assimilation is the outcome. Every single nutrient, vitamin, or amino acid that crosses the barrier into your bloodstream depends entirely on your circulatory function to actually travel to the specific cells that require it.
So it's like ordering the most expensive, organic, grass-fed superfoods on the internet. The warehouse packs them perfectly. But if the delivery trucks, your circulatory system are broken down on the side of the road or, stuck in a traffic jam caused by a Valsalva maneuver,
The cells never receive the package?
the cells sitting in your tissues just starve.
Exactly. You can have a perfect, meticulously tracked diet, hitting all your macros, but if your circulation is compromised, you are functionally nutrient deficient at the tissue level.
That is terrifying.
The exact same plate of food delivered through an optimized circulatory system produces a completely different physiological result than one delivered through a stagnant system. That is why the foundational rule of the framework is assimilation equals health first.
Meaning robust circulation has to come first.
Nutrition is not the first lever you pull.
Yeah.
Circulation is.
That exposes such a massive blind spot in public health. I mean, we have Millions of people obsessing over macronutrients and calorie counting, but their fascial pumps are locked up from sitting at a desk for 9 hours.
Right, and the respiratory pump is suffocated by chronic stress and rigid core bracing.
None of those high-quality nutrients are arriving where they need to go.
If we look at the medical and fitness industries as a whole, you see how they operate in complete silos. You have gastroenterologists studying the biomechanics of the gut, you have cardiologists exclusively studying the heart muscle, and you have personal trainers tracking caloric expenditure.
And nobody is talking to each other.
They fail to communicate with each other, completely missing the fact that a wide, varied diet only works when the augmented circulatory system is functioning as a unified, whole system delivery network.
Okay, so if the calories in, calories out model is a fallacy, and standard gym routines are just driving our bodies in straight lines with the parking brake on, how do we actually fix the delivery trucks? What is the tangible formula to get all 5 of these pumps working together seamlessly?
This brings us to the final focus element from the source material, the WAVE-E protocol. According to Hughes, it is the most significant formula to act upon to actually restore the system.
WAVE. What does that acronym stand for?
WAVE stands for Whole System Optimization Applied Variable Exercise.
Whole system optimization. Honestly, that sounds like a mandatory software update for my laptop. What does that actually look like for a human body trying to get healthy?
The practical applied proof of the WAVE protocol is what Hughes calls the one-sequence demonstration. It is a highly specific 10-minute movement sequence.
Just 10 minutes.
Just 10 minutes. But unlike a typical cardio workout, its primary goal is not to drive up your heart rate or burn calories. Its singular goal is to optimize circulation by engaging all 5 of those hidden booster pumps simultaneously.
Okay, a 10-minute routine. How does it physically manage to hit all 5 systems at once?
First, it utilizes varied muscle chains, anterior, posterior, and lateral. So you aren't just moving forward. The sequence forces you to move backwards, step sideways, and twist diagonally, which wrings out the fascial pump.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, it uses deliberate diaphragmatic breathing that is strictly coordinated with the movement. You inhale deeply to create the vacuum when the body physically opens, and you exhale when it closes. There is absolutely no breath holding.
Goodbye to the Valsalva maneuver roadblock.
Exactly. Third, it demands full joint articulation. Your ankles, knees, hips, spine, and shoulders are all required to move through their full ranges of motion, acting as active circulatory relay stations.
Right.
Fourth, it is built heavily on cross-lateral coordination, deliberately crossing the midline with opposite arms and legs to force neurological and circulatory integration.
Brain talking to the body.
Yes. And finally, it uses rhythmic pacing. It is aligned to your internal biological timing, not an external rush tempo dictated by a stopwatch.
So you are literally syncing the breath, the brain, the muscles, and the fascia, all to the exact same biological beat.
And because it engages that multiplier effect we discussed, the 1 + 1 = 5 equation, just 10 minutes of this specific multi-directional sequence delivers more genuine circulatory throughput and tissue recovery than a standard 30-minute walk on a sagittal treadmill.
Wow.
Purely because it is a complete biologically integrated system.
It's hard to wrap my head around the idea that a 10-minute sequence can do more than a 30-minute run. But this isn't necessarily about throwing away your running shoes or canceling your gym membership.
No.
It's about rewriting the foundational recipe of how we prepare our bodies to move. You're saying just 10 minutes of this specific multidirectional breath-link movement can flip the master switch on the entire augmented system.
Yes. The WAVE protocol doesn't replace your favorite sport or your weightlifting routine. It defines what the human body structurally requires as a daily baseline.
Like brushing your teeth for your circulation.
Exactly. It is the minimum daily requirement to maintain your circulatory plumbing so that when you do go for that run or eat that incredibly healthy meal, your cells can actually assimilate the benefits.
It's turning on all the booster pumps in the skyscraper before you turn on the main water main.
It ensures the system can handle the pressure without burning out.
This entire framework is completely paradigm shifting. To everyone listening, the big takeaway here is that your heart does not work alone, and neither should your movement practice.
Absolutely.
The old model of just sweating endlessly on a treadmill and starving yourself is scientifically incomplete and mechanically flawed. Health starts with assimilation. Assimilation relies entirely on circulation.
Right.
And circulation relies on engaging your entire augmented system, your calf muscles, your diaphragmatic breath, your twisting fascia, your snapping arteries, and your natural rhythm.
When you align those 5 mechanisms through something like the WAVE protocol, you stop fighting your own biology and you start exponentially multiplying your health.
Which brings us right back to our skyscraper analogy. We've spent the last 50 years trusting a fitness and public health industry that essentially put one single water pump in the basement and told us to just run it harder until we collapse.
Which is tragic, really.
It is. So if our global health guidelines have been prescribing movements and diets built on such a fractured, isolated understanding of human physiology, what other established daily health habits are we blindly following that are actually fighting our biology rather than supporting it?
That is the profound question we all need to start investigating for ourselves.
Key